So friends, it was a long day, and we would very quickly like to close in terms of deciding on the future agenda and also trying to work out details as they have emerged in the course of the day. I would first request Ambassador Devre for his remarks. Then my colleagues at RIS have put together some points since morning, so we would quickly remind ourselves and then we go forward. So, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Sachin. Yes, we have had a full day today. I think IMEC must be coming out of our ears and nose and everything. Yeah. Well, brief takeaways. I listened to the discussions whole day and I jotted down a few points. Um, I thought we first uh, had discussion about the definition, so to speak, of IMEC. The definitional points, I think the reference was made at the end of the meeting about BRI. And I think we clearly felt it is not a BRI kind of a scheme. I think IMEC differs from BRI. BRI is sponsored by one country, and here we regard IMEC as a kind of a collaborative project uh, amongst all countries, a collaborative economic corridor. And then we went into what economic corridor really uh, comprises. It is not just a transport transit mechanism, but it's more comprehensive. We also thought it should be inclusive. It should lead to inclusive development. How that will come about, I think that we discussed at fairly great length. There was also a thought that it should not be only for economic growth, but it should also reduce inequality. At the end of the day, there was a thought that IMEC cannot be an isolated corridor. It will also need to support or involve other South Asian neighbors. Only then I think it will be really viable. It is not to be regarded as an India based or India backed program. It should be for everyone. And then it was also considered that there can be institutions from which we can draw support. They can be American institutions, European institutions. They can all play a certain role, whatever they choose to play. Then we went into special characteristics of IMEC. As we noted at the outset, IMEC has a kind of a political basis. Let's not forget that. I2U2, Abraham Accords, these are some of the underlying identifying themes which has brought this whole concept of IMEC. This IMEC route has not been traveled before. That was also a point made. Geographically, you had the Cape of Good Hope or later on Suez route. Both were found to be not really useful anymore. I mean, not as useful as they should be. In a way, they are outdated because of the volumes that are passing through them, or the distance, or the conflict areas in which they are located, or overall international relations. Moreover, with this IMEC route once established, the whole basis of global trade, customs, concept of connectivity, perhaps everything may change. I don't know whether the concept of, it's my thinking, even the concept of free trade area may change. Because if you are going to invest so much into this collaborative corridor like this, then the question will arise, why should we have free trade areas, at least among these countries? Also, questions were raised whether there will not be any countries which will be object to this IMEC. And this was one of the serious concerns which was voiced, countries like Turkey or Egypt. There was a question of even security of the maritime movement of goods and services. After all, an economic corridor of this kind suffers from certain vulnerabilities. And those vulnerabilities will have to be taken into account when we think of this big project. You have currently port of Haifa. There is a conflict area there. And we are working on this whole premise as though this whole area is free from any disorder or conflict. So perhaps we may have to think of alternative ports also. Earlier in the morning, representatives from Germany and Italy talked of the domino effect, or they thought of choosing landing ports in their countries, just like, for example, Marseille and Trieste, they were mentioned. So there are new ideas which are also mentioned in this. What will be IMEC bring to India? I think that was one of the central points in the discussion, and we felt that the kind of competitiveness that IMEC will open for us, it might lead to greater efficiency. And then the chairman of the JNPA mentioned that JNPA today is more efficient in many ways than even Jebel Ali of UAE. And therefore, IMEC, it is a futuristic project in many ways, but part of that is already in action, already is complete. Because from here, if you have this project like Maitri between India and UAE functioning, then at least one segment of IMEC is already functioning. Well, there were thoughts that we need to improve our productivity. I think finally what we do at home will be more important. We should be more self-sufficient. For example, reference was made to production of green hydrogen with our own technologies and with our own skills of our engineers. So if we do that, then the need to get imports from outside countries of those goods and services may be reduced, but the need to have import of technology was still emphasized. And finally, the important topic of finance was discussed. Well, even at, I think, Bellagio, it was stated that each state will develop on its own territory its requirements. Otherwise, this whole project cannot be viable because there will be no immediate funding available. And given the constraint on the supply of funds, I think the best way would be for these countries to find their own ways to build themselves. Public-private partnership, PPP model, blended finance, they were mentioned. Global gateway, can this be tried? That was also reference to that made. I think financing will certainly be a major problem, particularly in the current mood in the United States, from where I think funding was expected, because this was a project which was signed by the President of the United States with other leaders, and it was implicit that there will be funding by the United States. Given the present situation, there will be, of course, a certain uncertainty about that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think in the end we all felt that IMEC may need some institutionalized arrangement, secretariat or something of that kind. It perhaps may not be at the moment feasible, but we should keep talking. We should not let this initiative go down, because similar situations have happened in the past, and I can mention some of the economic corridors which had moved far ahead than even IMEC, but finally just collapsed, like TAPI or the north-south corridor through Eurasia, or the Asia-Africa corridor, which India and Japan were co-sponsoring. So such instances are there, and therefore we need to keep talking. And IMEC offers, to my mind, a new promise, a new horizon, and therefore I think the seminar today, in that way, I don't know how many seminars of this kind have taken place in India so far, but perhaps this may be the first one. They have. Okay. So I think it is in keeping with this, I think, practice of deliberating on a subject like this uh, has been found useful, and we should continue that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your excellent summary, and good that you went thematic focus that you retained in your presentation of summary of the rather long day that we had. So this was quite enriching. I think from RIS perspective, 4 points are sir important, and that's what we are taking away from this. First and foremost, as you rightly said, and we also absorb in terms of the academic work that is required. And this is largely in terms of understanding the theoretical frameworks which have come up in terms of understanding connectivity, in terms of defining it, and also bringing in the relevant case studies that are required. At this point, our understanding of corridors, our understanding of growth triangles, quadrangles that have come up is extremely weak and requires perspectives which take us beyond individual ministries' approach and limitations. So from that perspective, I think the ideas which are there, which we initially thought of, as you rightly mentioned, going beyond transport corridor, bringing in economy. And when we say economy, what do we all mean? What kind of dimensions are important? And I think what we heard from Ekumo-san, I think is important in terms of bringing in industrialization, urbanization, energy, connectivity, telecom connectivity. These are important facets of it. And that, I think, would provide the necessary heft to the purposes. And you rightly posed this question whether free trade area would have to be revisited. So we need to do some academic work more to describe and capture how historically it has happened in the areas where corridors of this nature have come up. That's number one, and I think RIS would continue to do that. Second, sir, is to identify broad sectors, and I think energy has rightly been described. We have already requested to see what the interlinkages are, because on finance there is a greater understanding that within the national territory the host country should spend. But how do we do interlinkages? Who would absorb the cost? And as Rajat Nag mentioned, countries feel that if they establish that international connect, others would take advantage and would go to other country, and then the positive externality would go out. So as Dash was mentioning, there are possibilities of entities like World Bank to step in and provide the finances that are necessary. We have requested Mr. Bhattacharya to help us out in terms of how the grid connectivity can be done, and what are the ways, at least in an energy sector, we can do that. Similar effort for digital connectivity is being done, and I have requested Dr. Dash to lead our work program on financial connectivity that has to come up across. RBI has already signed this agreement with UAE when Prime Minister visited. More of such work by RBI connecting with Saudi Arabia and further up with other countries which are coming up in the region, they would also be coming in. So digital connectivity again would be second case study that we would do. Energy, we have already established contact with Amit and have also requested ISA colleagues to produce. The third study that we are thinking is more on port and shipping, which my colleagues, Professor Prabir Day and Dr. Shotriya are going to take forward at CIMAC. And then, sir, comes in the issue of education and skilling. Already, IITs and IIMs have established several centers in West Asian countries. We requested, unfortunately, Nomesh fell sick today, but they are undertaking a sort of survey with our colleague Nicola, who is producing a report on mapping the skill deficits that the countries in the Middle East are seeing. So, how Saudi, UAE, Jordan, what kind of skill deficit they are seeing in terms of education and further support, particularly the seafarers, the digital connectivity people that they would require, also digital payment architecture would require different kind of skill sets. So that is being assessed. Also, a separate initiative, particularly on financing. This, I think, once the sectoral studies are done, we would have a clear roadmap in terms of what additional funding is required from MDBs and others to provide connectivity. And this connectivity, again, sir, would be at two different levels. One, of course, the financial that would have to be seen for connecting them physically, but also in terms of SOPs that are required. And that's where the largest transaction cost is being expected. So how do we reduce that? What kind of measures we can take? Like, for instance, 4 different rejections of IMEC we are hearing. And yesterday we had discussions with people from Poland, and we also had people from Morocco and a couple of other countries. They have reservations in terms of how India would or the IMEC countries would avoid already well-established routes like Suez Canal and others, and reject and go to another proposition which is more cost escalating one. So how do we do that? The second comes in, which was raised during discussion last session, in terms of when BRI is there, what's the point in reinventing the wheel? Just go ahead and contribute, and China is open, and what's the problem? So that's the second kind of argument which is coming in. The third is, do we really need to reinvest money when some of the countries in West Asia are not open in terms of the value systems which are there across Europe and India? So are we really combining? And then probably one may go towards east, but going towards west, particularly through West Asia, may not be most productive. So we are seeing and hearing all these apprehensions. Some of them are during tea breaks, but some of them are also appearing in formal discussions. So those issues are very much in our mind, and we are trying to bring in, by the way, those of you who are interested in getting a sort of comparison of BRI and India proposed Asia-Africa Growth Corridor, outside Springer publication is there, which we did in 2019 or 16. AIGC. I think 2018. So that volume is outside. It compares BRI and India's own idea of, and as Ambassador Devri rightly captured, the idea of inclusivity, the idea of bringing in equitable gains for all countries, idea of not getting this dominated by one country as a source of supply to rest. And now, with reactions from US and EU and also IMEC countries, today we heard in the morning Italy and Germany also getting agitated in terms of low-cost dumping by China. So we are realizing how difficult for countries it would be to see jobs going, good production going, and imports multiplying. So that kind of transport corridor to bring in goods and do not allow local production networks to come up, and what was rightly said, distinction between transport and economic corridor. So I think those sir, would be our endeavor to take that forward. But thanks a lot to everyone for their contribution and for remaining engaged throughout the day. I would now invite Dr. Meena to propose vote of thanks.
Thank you, Professor Chaturvedi. Thanks a lot. Let me begin by saying and by confessing that as the secretary of the society, small society, SIOS, when we had started thinking about pitching this idea to RIS, we were kind of very skeptical about ourselves. that such we are a very small society. Why would RIS join us in doing this? But then he was gracious enough to agree through Ambassador Devre. So I am very thankful to DG Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, also to Chair Ambassador Sanjay Kumar Verma. The groundwork or the legwork was so ably done by Dr. Priyadarshi Das. He has been in the force behind organizing this whole conference. Whatever we see today is his work, and I must also thank all the speakers. First of all, the speakers who have traveled to Delhi today from various parts of the world. Some were here for Raisina Dialogue, others like Isumo-san has traveled all the way from Japan to be here. So a very heartfelt thanks to them, because they have traveled long distances to be here, and there is some physical discomfort involved whenever you travel. I thank each and every speaker, especially I think the JNPA chairman also traveled from Mumbai to be in this conference.
Madam, she came from Mumbai.
Oh, sorry, ma'am, I did not know that. Thank you so much for joining us. So them and all the speakers today, we are so grateful that you were able to join us. Plus the RIS team, IT team, IT cell, RIS social media team, they have been wonderful in publicizing the event, and we were delighted to see the work which is now being done here in front of us. So then I must thank the audience, which has been so engaging since morning and contributing to each and every session in a very insightful manner. Some of our already established experts here at RIS, but some of the outsiders also contributed very well in the sessions. From the SIS side, I would like to thank, I think Sanjeev Ranjanji is a board member, Vinayshil Gautamji is a board member, and plus I think Dr. S.N. Tripathi was here today. Mr. S.N. Tripathi, who heads IIPA, he is also a governing body member. So 3 of them, plus we have a research fellow and 2 interns who are here, who have been also contributing to this conference in one way or the other. So thanks a lot to all of you. And again, I must thank Dr. Dash for making this happen. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Okay.